Hi, my name is Tanya Janca, and today I'm going to talk to you about building security champions. We're going to talk about scaling your security team and your security program, and basically how you can do more with less. As a security professional, you are probably aware that you will never have enough money, time, and people to do every single thing that you want to make your program the best it can be. So let's talk about strategies to make this work for you. So again, we're going to talk about scaling. So I don't mean scaling a fish where you take off all the scales. That's gross. But I know fisher people do it. But we're going to talk about growing your program so that it's bigger than you. When we think about cloud computing, often we'll think of scaling and how things can get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's what we're going to do with your security. We're going to talk about what security champions are and how we want to build them up. Sometimes people, they think security champions come out of nowhere, and once in a while, when we're lucky, they do. But most of the time, we need to encourage that behavior and build them up, train them, teach them, engage them, etc., so that we can turn them in from just a regular technology employee to a champion of our cause, which is security. So we're going to follow a recipe that I've done a bunch of times and just that I've seen over and over work really well. It's not easy, but the investment that you get, the return on your investment will be huge. So we are going to follow this recipe throughout the entire talk. So we're going to go back to each one of these sections, so you don't need to memorize this. So first we're going to recruit our champions. We are going to engage them, interest them, attract them. We're going to teach them all the stuff we need them to know. We are going to recognize them in front of their peers, in front of their boss. We are going to reward them, give them benefits for being a security champion, and most importantly, we are not going to stop. Stopping is the number one error that I see in security champions programs. Can't stop. So who the heck am I? I am Tanya Janca, also known as She Hacks Purple. I'm the CEO of a Canadian cybersecurity training company called We Hack Purple. I wrote a book and it went bestseller, and I'm so grateful. It is called Alice and Bob Learn Application Security. I've worked in tech a long time. It says 20 plus. I'm almost at 25. I have founded a bunch of nonprofit things to help people learn about security. I build things. I really like breaking them and then fixing them. I podcast, I stream. I am a nerd at large on the internet. And that's like the main stuff you probably need to know about me. So hopefully you're like, she seems qualified. I'm willing to sit through this. Awesome, let's go. Oh yeah, that's about me. Okay, so the problem. There are not enough application security professionals to do all the work that we need doing. I read a study yesterday, and there are now 3.5 million jobs around the world in the cybersecurity industry with no qualified person to do them. This stinks. And because of that, that means a lot of work is not getting done. And so what I am proposing, so this is the problem. You probably know the problem and feel that pain acutely. So let's talk about solutions. So I want to scale your team and your program so you can go further with less. So we know there aren't enough, and we want to find ways to make our efforts stretch way further than they could on our own. So my main proposal is security champions. There's a bunch of other ways that you can actually scale your team, etc., but this is the best one, and I'm only allowed giving one talk at this conference. So security champions. So that is the member of a team that takes the responsibility of acting as the primary advocate for security within that team, acting as the first line of defense or the first person to give information or the first person to act within that team when it has to do with security. So that's the formal definition that you'll find floating around the internet. But my definition, it is the person who's the most excited about security. The person on the team who wants to read the book, fix the bugs, asks the security questions, shows up to your lunch and learns every single time, that is your champion. And you want to find those people and encourage them as much as you can. Okay, so what is a champion, right? So they're your communicator. They deliver security messages for each dev team. They teach, share, and help. They're your point of contact. So they deliver messages to the security team. They keep you up to date on what matters to your team. They are your advocate. So they perform security work for their dev team with your help, but they also advocate on behalf of security. And they help give you information so you can advocate on behalf of the devs. They kind of meet you halfway and let you know what's going on and make sure that your message, to continue making apps that are secure gets heard. I'm going to talk a lot about software because that is my specialty, but security champions can work with all sorts of areas. Like you can have security champions on your project management team. You can have security champions in your executive. I certainly hope you do. Okay, so let's build security champions. So again, this is our recipe: recruit, engage, teach, recognize, reward, and do not stop. Yes. Okay, so let's go through the recipe. So we're going to start with recruit. So recruiting champions, right? So I'm putting like the big muscle emoticon because I like to think of them as champions, as like they're tough and they're strong. Okay, so the first most important rule when trying to recruit people to be your champion: don't volunteer them to be a security champion. You want to attract the right people instead. If you tell the managers, yeah, everyone, one of your team members has to be a champion, like tell me tomorrow who they are, that you're probably going to get the dev that they think stinks, not the really good dev. You're probably going to get a person that is in trouble or was late to the meeting rather than the person that actually has been studying cybersecurity on their own. You really want to help them self-identify whenever possible. And the number 2 rule is ensure the managers are on board. They have to give them time to work on this work. If the manager is like, I don't want you doing that, I have work for you that's more important, then you're making the person be torn in between the person that pays them and your team. And that's not a good place to put anyone. So it's really important that the management team supports this and is on board. So let's talk about recruiting. Okay, so first of all, you want to ask for volunteers instead of appointing people without consent. Sometimes people say, oh, like I just do the thing and then I beg for forgiveness later. I don't like that approach. I prefer consent and like people knowing what's going on because you get better long-term results. It's important to provide opportunities for them to reveal themselves. So opportunities can include like, you can add to your email signature that you're looking. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it so works. You can use lunch and learns or training sessions. Anyone that attends all of your events or is always asking questions, that's probably a potential champion. If you can use really interesting titles like subjects for your emails or for when you do a lunch and learn event, things like that, you want to attract them and you need to remember that with the stuff that you do. And the last thing is that you really want to have a mantra, like as a security team in general, like it's my job to serve you. It's my job to help you do your job securely. And when you have this mantra and attitude instead of you have to jump through these security hoops or you can't go to prod, you'll get better results. People will be more interested and recruitment will be a lot better. Places where I've worked where the security team has adopted that mantra or that ideology of it's our job to serve you, you're our customer. I've seen huge positive results. Okay, so we've recruited some people, we have an idea. How do we engage them, get them interested? Okay, so we want to engage them. And I don't mean, let me tell you what I mean. So we want to occupy, attract, and involve them in security stuff. And we want to participate or become involved with them, right? So we want to engage with them and make them feel engaged with security. So what does that mean? You could bring them on a security incident if you got permission, especially if it has something to do with stuff they work on. That will be highly educational and interesting. share secrets when it's appropriate. I have deputized lots of teams before where I've told them, like, listen, this is need to know. You can't tell anyone outside this room, but let me tell you what happened last week. It can make people feel special. It can be intriguing, very interesting. That's how I got hooked. I mean, really. Let them see everything first. Let them see new tools. Let them see changes. Let them see information. Like whatever is upcoming, tell them first so they have the inside scoop. Create a mailing list to tell everyone new stuff about security. Like they can, it sounds so silly, but like you only need 20 people on your mailing list if they're all engaged. So you want to meet with them at least once every month and have a list of questions every time so that you're ready to ask them about stuff. So stuff that I would ask, so what are you working on? What are you going to be working on? Do you have any problems? Do you have any questions? How can I help? And be surprised the things they're going to tell you. You should brace yourself for bad news so you can like play it cool. I have not always been able to play it really cool when I have gotten news from my security champions about what has been going on in my organization. If they're like, yeah, so there's this thing and I'm not sure if it's a thing, but I kind of want to tell you, it's probably going to be really bad. And you want to brace yourself for that. If you can do team building events so that the security champions can all know each other, that's really, really cool. Like a tabletop exercise is a really good way to have team building, or even just invite them all for a coffee and introduce each other once COVID has made that a safe possibility again. Invite them to join security communities. There is an OWASP chapter in my city and in the previous city where I used to live, and I would invite people from my teams to go, and then if they wanted to go, we would usually just walk over from work together. And they wouldn't go all the time, but they would go sometimes, and each time they'd learn tons of important stuff, and so that's awesome. And it got them more interested, and those are a lot of the ways I got some champions. So now I want to teach them stuff. What should we teach our champions? So this I feel, it sounds simple, but it's hard. So the first advice I want to give you is only teach them what they need to know. Don't teach them piles of crap. I once worked somewhere and my job was to do AppSec, but also to train all the devs. And so they'd hired this really high paid fancy consultant the year before, and he had made this training for the devs, and she's like, yeah, like, do you want to deliver this training? And I threw like 3/4 of it in the garbage because there was like a whole day on, symmetric versus asymmetric encryption. And I said, like, why do the devs need to know this? And like the history of Diffie-Hellman. I'm like, do we want them to be bored to tears? Is this a punishment that we're putting them through? Why are we teaching them tons of crap that they don't need to know to do their jobs? Devs already have enough on their mind. Every person in IT, we're busy. So you want to teach them what you need, expect, and want from them as your security champions. That's what you want them to know. So let me get a bit more into that because I am like a security teacher, professor, trainer person. So yeah, I'm going to give you a lot of stuff. Okay, so if you are in my shoes where you're trying to make security champions that are software developers and, those that revolve around them, I want to teach them secure coding and security architecture. Yes, that is super important. I want all the devs to know that, but I especially need my champions to really know it. I want them to know all the policies of the place I work. That's super duper important. If they don't know the policies, then they can't tell us when there's screw ups and people aren't following the policies. You want to teach them the policies in the most interesting way you can. You don't want to bore them to tears. Do your best. Not every policy is fun. Tooling. So you want to teach them the tools that they're going to be using. So I'm going to dig into each one of these in the following slides because honestly, this is the question I get asked the most about what to do with their security champions. And so they're like, what do we teach them? I'm like, teach them this. Okay, so secure coding and security architecture. So If you can give them formal training, that's awesome. If there can be labs or some sort of hands-on, especially code review. I really, really want my champions to be able to review every single pull request or code check-in to see if it's following our secure coding guideline. It's so important. If possible, I want to teach them threat modeling. I really want them to know threat modeling. They might not lead the threat modeling most of the time, but they will find all sorts of threats. So threat modeling is like a habit. Once you learn how to do it, you just can't stop. Security architecture. So I want them to be able to whiteboard out an app with their team and then ask really simple questions like, is there encryption between there and there? How are you authenticating and authorizing once you get there? Are you? Ooh, you're not? That doesn't seem very good. If they can just do the simplest parts of security architecture, they can help you scale your program so much, because there's just not enough time in the day for me or whoever the full-time AppSec person is to do a security architecture review on every single app you have. Code review. I know code review might not be a sexy topic for every person, but I really need my champions to be able to spot at least the big three. They must be able to spot every time if there's not input validation, or if the input validation looks incorrect. There needs to be output encoding, and they need to be using parameterized queries if they're talking to a database. And like, if you could just review for those three things, life will be so much better. How to fix the bugs that they find. So if they're doing code review, are they able to fix the code or suggest a fix to the dev that they found it in? How to fix bugs that the pen tester finds, etc. Like, you want them to be able to look at a report and not think, what does this mean? And you want to repeat this training yearly, because things change, and because, quite frankly, devs have so many responsibilities and so many things they need to know. Like, refreshing them will get you better results. Okay, so more, your policies, right? If no one's going to follow your policies if they don't know what they are, and your champions really need to know them. So which policies, standards, and guidelines actually apply to them? Help them create guidelines that don't exist. So if there is no secure coding guideline, help them make one. If there's no just guidelines for anything, like how to use a security tool on the network, what bugs need to be fixed and which bugs can wait 30 days, etc. Teach them how to be compliant with these policies and help them get there. You might have to create a project schedule with them to help them become compliant. You don't want to just run around and hit people with a policy stick. You want them to meet the policy. You want them to be compliant. Not so that they're obedient and good employees, but because then your organization is more secure. It is my opinion you absolutely must teach them what their role is during a security incident. I have had too many security incident situations where another staff member did not know what they should and should not be doing, where they messed up my incident pretty bad. And so it's really important that they know what their duty and role is, what you need from them. A way of teaching is job shadowing. And like, I know that this is topics and this is like a way, but like that is just a really good way to teach them. So if you have to do a whole bunch of code review, like inviting one of your champions to do it with you so that they can learn, it's a really good way to teach. And if you're not used to teaching, like this can be like a less uncomfortable, less like you don't have to prepare as much sort of way to teach. I also believe that for policies, you should hold consultations before you put them live and into place, and ask them for their input, because these policies are going to affect them and they know their jobs better than you do. And so you should definitely check with them to make sure, well, do the best you absolutely can. How about that? Okay, so tooling. I want them to know all the tools that I expect them to interact with or use as part of their job. So custom training on the AppSec tools or whatever the security tools are that you have them use. They need to understand what the output means. That might seem so obvious. Well, just go to your favorite search engine and look it up. No, No, it doesn't always work that way. You really want to, if there are things that come up commonly, you want to go over it with them so they feel comfortable. You want to help them validate the results of these tools because you probably don't have time to validate every single thing every time. So you want to train your champions how to do that and then to just come to you when they're stuck. You might be training them how to install and configure the tools. So for instance, I worked at a place and every team had their own pipeline to release code. And so they wanted to just make them all struggle and figure out how to install the tool themselves, reinventing the wheel every time. And I'm like, no. So we made one demo pipeline. We showed them all and we're like, just copy this YAML into your pipeline like this and then tell us if you have any problems running it. Help them select the best tools. This is really important. When there are new technologies being selected for where you work, you want to be a part of this, helping to teach your champions to put forth like, oh, but how secure is that tool? That will make your life easier in the future. Some ways that you can teach them are lunch and learns or hackathons where you could teach a whole bunch of champions together. But basically, like everything you can about the tools you expect them to use, you want to train them. So I know that I'm going into the style of teaching again, even though we're in the topics section or the teaching section, but this is like a way of teaching. And so this isn't a separate part. I'm kind of including that in this part of the recipe. So, so coaching, yes, the kitty as a lifesaver. So I believe that coaching is a really good way to get the things that you want. So let me briefly explain what I mean. So it means enabling individuals or teams to reach their maximum potential. So you want to facilitate how they learn. You want to figure out what their motivations are and then assist them in making change. So you want to change these just plain old regular software developers into security champions. Devs that understand security, devs that take it seriously, that advocate for it. And so if we want them to start practicing a secure system development lifecycle, we need to support them and coach them to get there. And if we want our security champions constantly evangelizing our cause and advocating for us, we need to reinforce those values. And that means regular touch points, and that's coaching. So back to the kitty with the lifesaver. So for champions, set up office hours. Make yourself available. I know right now with COVID, people are like, how do you do office hours? Simple. You share a meeting invite with everyone and just, every Friday from 2 to 4, you just have a Zoom thing open. And if someone shows up, then you talk to them. And otherwise, you just clear your inbox or do whatever other task it is that you need to do. Like people won't show up every time, but when they do, they really want to talk to you. Set up repeat meetings with all your champions to meet with them once a month. If they need to reschedule, it's okay, but don't let them miss for more than 1 month in a row. Help them prioritize their activities or their bugs because sometimes they just need a fresh look at things. Be as available as you possibly can. I know that you have a job, you have work to do, you're a busy person. I get it, I know. But the more available you can be for your champions, the more engaged they will be and the better job they can do for you. Help them set goals and then help them achieve those goals. There is nothing that makes someone more motivated than smashing some goals and setting new ones. This will get more engagement for you in the long term. Teach them specific skills or tools, especially if there are ones they ask for. So you might have some where they really want to learn dynamic scanning, they really want to learn ethical hacking, let's say, but other ones might really want to learn about security architecture or about code review. Encourage them on the things they want to learn. And lastly, ask them what they need and provide it whenever you can. This is super important. That's it. This goes for every employee that you manage. Okay, so a special note on delegation. So there are some things that should not be the responsibility of the AppSec team. So I know you probably know how to do these things as a security professional, but you need to delegate these. So you want to delegate fixing bugs. You should not be sitting around fixing all the security bugs. I know it's tempting. You're like, I could do this better and faster. Yeah, but it'll never scale. Updating frameworks. You get frustrated. You're like, can't you just upgrade it? I'll do it. No, don't do it, because then you'll always have to do it. Planning releases or upgrades, assigning who fixes what bug, running every single scan, implementing or tuning every single tool, writing security unit tests. The list is endless, but if you can teach them a thing, you see them doing it, delegate it. This is part of you scaling your program, and delegating to your champions is a safe move if you have trained them and they accept the responsibility. Things to not delegate. So do not delegate these things. Validating SAST results. So static application security testing tools, the results are complex. Unless you've given your security champions a lot of training and you work very closely with them, whenever I have seen so many times security teams are like, oh, the devs will just validate this, and then no one uses the tool and the tool just rots even though it has very valuable data in it. So definitely only do this if they are comfortable. Giving the security teams approval on technologies or anything else. No one can give the security teams approval except the security team, and that's you. Using new tools without being trained. They must be trained before they use any security tool on your network. Training new champions. They can hang out with them, they can show them cool tips and tricks, but it is your job to onboard new champions. We are looking for partnership and assistance. We are not looking for replacements for our team members. So I've seen people where they go way one way or way the other way, and you want to try to walk down the middle of this line between delegating what the champions are comfortable with and not delegating your power or authority or things that they might not be comfortable doing a good job of. Recognize. It is important to recognize your champions. We want them to know they are doing a good job. And we do not want them to feel like they're trying really hard doing 2 jobs, but for some reason, only 1 paycheck arrives. We don't want them to feel like this. So we recognize them so that they know that we see. I've had people say, oh, like, this is lame, people don't care. They really care, trust me. They really care. Adults respond. People are like, that's for children. No, adults also want positive reinforcement. They want to know that their boss knows they did a great job. They want their peers to know that they work really hard. It's normal. So we want to recognize them. So a thing you can do is put a certificate on their wall that says they're a security champion. I've seen it time and again, and people are just like, really? Yes. Yes, people really like it, and they respond well. Recognize them whenever you can in front of their peers. So this could mean giving them a special virtual background that says, I'm a security champion. There could be a star on their name in your like internal chat. So if you use Slack or Teams or whatever, having a little star and you're like, that's the deputization star of the security champion. You should definitely make sure to put a note in their performance review. So say all the good things they did. Be specific, give examples. I want their manager to know that they did a great job, and I want them to know that their manager knows, and that there's a permanent note in their file of how much effort they've been putting into this and how much they've been succeeding at it, how much value they've been giving their organization. Recognition. When you recognize your employees or a team of volunteers, they will be so much more loyal. They will work harder for you because they feel valued. And also just they're human beings, and we should make them feel valued. We just should. Okay, so tell their boss every time they do something specifically awesome. So if they do a great big thing, or like they stay over the weekend and fix a whole bunch of bugs that were really important, or update a framework that was like really upsetting you, tell their boss and let them know. Send them an email and tell them that you saw. You want them to know that you noticed that they are working hard and that their work matters. And then make their role on the team clear to their peers. It's really important that their peers understand like that they have some sort of authority, that they should be listening to them. And it feels good to be recognized in front of your peers. What can I say? I totally live for positive reinforcement. That and sugar. So the world's most interesting man doesn't always think about security, but when he does, it's usually too late. Okay, so reward. We want to reward them for their amazing work. So we want to reinforce good behavior with rewards instead of punishing bad behavior. It's a lot more likely that you will have your champions like you if you do that. So anything you can think of, reward them if you can. So if you are allowed to buy things, if you have a budget, so you could buy them a security book, you know, send them security videos, send them on security training, send them on a CTF, like any sort of gift that you can give them your time and attention. That is a reward. I kid you not. Help them with more than just security. I was a dev forever. I can still fix whatever type of bug people need. And so if a security champion is coming to me and they're like, oh yeah, and there's this other problem, like, tell me, I will help you. I want to help them with everything so that they trust me with security. Let them see new things first. Like I said, give them a sneak peek whenever possible. Let them help you make decisions. Take their opinions seriously. Listen to them. Anything you can think of that will make them feel rewarded. I know it sounds maybe a bit weird, but I've baked cookies a ton of times. And it's, yeah, going around just being like, I brought you some cookies as a gift because I want to say thank you because you're awesome. And just the effort of baking the cookies shows how much I value them. And you don't have to learn how to bake or anything. I just happen to like it. Okay, so the last one is please don't stop. So when in doubt, over communicate. If you do not communicate regularly, your program, it will disappear. It'll disappear quickly. It'll disappear before you've even realized it. I have seen so many places, so many places where they did this huge, big kickstart and they're like, we're gonna have a lunch and learn every week. We're gonna do this, and then after 6 weeks, they just stop because they're exhausted. It is much better to do a steady, slower rollout that is consistent than a huge burst and then disappear. So don't let it slip. Consistency is the absolute most important part of every security champion program. Even if you meet with them only once a month, just to check in for 15 minutes, that is you having it continue. Some champions will need more of your time than others, and some will be duds. Some of them will do the absolute bare minimum and they won't seem enthusiastic and they're not that great, but they are way better than nothing, which is what you had before. And so measure your time accordingly. If you have accidentally dropped your program, you need to pick it back up as soon as possible. You do not need to have a perfect lunch and learn presentation. You do not need to hire an amazing external professional speaker to come speak to them every time. Just you saying, hey, we bought a new tool and I kind of want to show it off. Anyone want to come? P.S. I have donuts. You'd be surprised how well that works. Culture is a practice. It must be repeated over and over and over again. Who you are, who your organization wants to be, the culture within your organization is something that you must reinforce constantly for it to continue to exist. And it will fall apart faster than you think. So please be consistent. And that is where you will get your huge value from these efforts. So we did it. We did it. We've recruited, engaged, we've taught them, we've recognized them, we've rewarded them, and we are not going to stop. So, conclusion, what we learned. So we learned how to attract the right people to your program. We learned about what to teach them. We learned how to engage them and turn them into our security advocates. We talked about what we should delegate, what we should not delegate. We talked about how to motivate our champions and basically just how to build a completely kick-ass program. That's what we talked about. And I think that, well, I'm going to give you a few resources, but I think you're well on your way. Okay, so, oh, yes, and our recipe, because I wanted to repeat it for the 5,000th time on the slide. Okay, so resources. So let's give you some things to start with. So these are my favorite books. Yes, I did write one of them, and obviously that's the best one ever. But you can't do security right if you are not doing IT right. And so I believe DevOps is the way. If you're doing waterfall, that's okay, but reading these books can really help you learn how to modernize your waterfall or your agile processes that you're doing, automating some parts of it. You will have more consistent results. And then my book, Alice and Bob Learn Application Security, it is from start to end, how to create a program, what each thing means, secure coding. It is everything that was in my brain at that point. And I am excited to offer that to the world. I have a podcast. It's called the We Hack Purple podcast. It's on all the different platforms. But basically, the first season is all about how to get into information security, the different types of jobs that exist. I interview a guest every week about, their career progression, what it's like to do their job. Does their job pay well? Are there a lot of job opportunities? How hard is it to get that job? What's the best part? What's the worst part? But season 2 will be starting in October, and it is going to be Teach Me Something Security, and we are going to teach 2 to 3 concepts or specific skills in each episode, because quite frankly, I want to learn for free, and I know a lot of cool people that can be guests and teach me stuff. Resources me. I just moved my blog, so it's now at wehackpurple.com, and then you just press the blog button. We just put it up last night, which is why this is not here. So wehackpurple.com, and then just click on the blog. So I'm moving all my blog posts over there. But I have a YouTube channel, Alice and Bob Learn. We have monthly free discussions where I invite a bunch of experts on and we talk about the book and answer questions and stuff. I have a newsletter. I tweet on Twitter. I'm a giant nerd. I really like talking about this stuff. And then lastly, I want to wish you a wonderful life, spending your time doing strange things with weird people, because in my opinion, that's a wonderful way to live. So thank you so very much for coming to my talk. I hope you all go out and build many, many, many security champions and a completely awesome security champions program. I'm Tanya Janca, and thank you for coming to my BSides talk.